let's just read this passage. We're reading it up front just so you know where we're going, and then we'll try to put this in into a world that we can kind of see how this flows, okay? So Genesis 32, 24 through 28. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. By the way, there are things in the Bible, such as this, that we're supposed to go, well, that's odd. Right? We tend to, when we're doing Bible, and when by doing, I just mean not just reading, but how we engage it, how we then process it, how we allow it to either be, oh, that's locked in and very clear, or that's something I need to process over time, that I need to work into how I understand this and where it fits in things. And a lot of the Bible is that. But when we're looking for, this is like math, well, you hated math probably. So maybe not describe the Bible as that, where it's black and white. Instead, this is a work that builds over time and that you get better at over time when you put forth the effort. So verse 25, when the man saw that he could not overpowered Jacob, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. The man said, let me go, for it's daybreak. Again, no idea why. That makes no sense to me. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Man, this is key, but we'll get to it. The man asked him, what is your name? Jacob, he answered. Then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. So Genesis, this is where we're at. Genesis breakdown. What it begins with. You're like, well, it begins with creation. Sort of. I mean, that's the entry point where you go, oh, God created everything. Okay, great. It literally says as things were beginning, in the process of beginning, and what's important is that God doesn't, all the other mythology stories have God's needing to go do something, accomplish something, win some battle, and the Old Testament, the word is a polemic. It just means that it's an anti those other things. The Bible basically says, while all these other gods and stories have these gods getting up and having to fight and do these things to win and earn, and God went, let there be. So these guys have to fight to make things in order, to put things in order. The consistent idea is that there was chaos, that things weren't together. And God, in response, and they have to go make things in order. And God's response to not order is, you move there and you move there and you come here. Cool. That's good. And this is what it is. It's a fun little Hebrew word that means good. It's tov. T-O-V. It's just, I don't know why I like it. I think it's cool. So then we go from chaos to order, and in that Adam shows up. And the highlight of creation is people, as opposed to the other mythologies where people are just like, well, we got work to do. Let's make cattle, which were people. And the Bible's really interesting with this. And we can go, I really can go on and on. And some of you feel like I am. But this is the uniqueness. And so as we're going through Genesis, I just gave you the Old Testament. We got those 5 people. But now we dive into Genesis. And this is where we're at with Jacob. And we've got Adam then shows up. And it's, again, a Hebrew thing where his name is Adam. And he's made from the dirt, right? And the dirt in Hebrew is Adamah. And so Adam comes from the Adamah, which I just love. So we got Dirt Man, which is you and I now. And Dirt Man, God says, hey, like Pastor Aeric talked about, really good message where he's like, look, everything. Well, what about that? It's yours. It's yours. I'll give you this one thing. That tree, just stay away from. That one's not for you. And it's a fun conversation to have why it's there and things like that. But we're not going to do that today. I'm just simply saying he just went, you're not God. Could it be easier? I mean, that's the basic, really boiled down thing that God said is like, everything's yours. All right. but you're not me. And if you start thinking you are, it's just going to mess things up. This isn't God having an ego. It's that it's simple. It's right now, I cannot lift 1,000 pounds. And so if I just say, oh, I'm going to lift 1,000 pounds, you would go, I wouldn't. You can't do that. That doesn't make sense. You know, I can't fly. Maybe some of you can. I can't. And so if I climbed a building and jumped off, there wouldn't be soaring that happened. And so you might go, that's a bad idea. In jumping, I would be choosing death rather than life by not jumping. And God's simply saying, look, it's a limit because of this is just who you are. You're amazing. Everything. Just don't get confused about that. Right? And so right away, like chapter 1, create, chapter 2, people and Eve, and so chapter 3, sin, 3 in, right? We are aggressive with it. Have you ever thought, like the first one, even if I think it's a metaphor, but even if you go literal, you go, apple, second sin, murder. You're overachieving. That needs to calm down. So, but you got Adam, next is Noah. So he goes through just this mess. And after Noah, or after Adam, things just go, it's like creation and Adam, and then drop through the floor. And you hit Noah, where God's going, literally every thought that people are having is violence. But there's no separation, no sense that's going on. We need to do a reboot. And we have this Noah thing. And then we come in years later to Abram. And finally, God has somebody who says, okay, I'll do that. Abram has a child. He has 2, but the one we're going to mention is Isaac. Abram sacrifices his own son Isaac. Doesn't end up killing him. But I've always thought that would be a weird thing to have in your past. Right? Like you're 22 and you're hanging out with your buddies and they're like, my dad used to take me to the games, and yeah, my dad taught me how to fix a car. And then Isaac's over there. My dad almost stabbed me on a mountain. Wait, what, dude? Don't talk about that in public. That's you're making everybody feel weird, okay? That's just awkward. But it's in the Bible, so we're like cool with it. You're like, no, it's weird. And so Isaac, we don't get a bunch of story from Isaac, and to me that makes sense. Like Isaac's like walking through life like a little jittery. Like, Dad, don't sneak up on me. I don't know what you're doing, and no, I will not carry wood for you. See, that's a deep joke. If you know the story, that's a good one too. So Isaac then has a kid, has 2 kids. He has Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau. Esau is a man's man. Like, Esau would have a big truck with weird things hanging from the tailgate and a gun rack and things like that, where they used to be okay to have gun racks, and he was a man's man. His name is the literal version is Red, and he says he covered in hair, and just kind of odd, but he's burly, and Esau's dad's favorite. And Jacob is, I feel akin to Jacob. I feel, Jacob is just a little guy. He doesn't really say he's little, he's just not Esau, right? Right? Esau's the quarterback. Right, and Jacob is like on the school newspaper. Nothing wrong with the newspaper. You're just not Esau, right? And Jacob was his mom's favorite. And this is also another weird. I don't know that it's a theme, but it's a weird consistency in the Bible that. Well, let me start with this. The Bible has a bunch of things that it describes but doesn't recommend. So here's the family dynamic. You've got you've got Isaac and his wife Rebecca. And they both have a clear favorite. Like to the degree that the kid knows they're the parent's favorite and the other kid knows that they're not the parent's favorite. Which means the parents are not connecting either. This is not a recommendation. This is for us to go, oh wow, things are not going to go well in that relationship. And it doesn't. Weird. See, we have some sense. But so we have this dad and one versus son and the mom and son and the other, and they're not examples for best practices in family life, but they are building up to this story. And anyway, so Isaac has inherited everything from his dad. He's very, very rich, and when he died, Esau is the oldest, his dad's favorite, and so Esau is going to get the majority of the inheritance. The way it worked out is that if you had 2 kids, all the stuff was divided into 3, and the firstborn would get 2 of that, 2/3, and the secondborn would get 1/3. And if it was more kids, it'd be broken up with that. Anyway, so Esau is going to get the best part. Dad knows he's getting ready to pass away, and he needs to give the blessing. He needs to confer this, make it formal. And so she calls Esau in and says, hey, I'm almost done for this world. Make me dinner, and then we'll go. Esau, manly man, goes out and hunts. Rebekah and Jacob go, Esau's gone. Let's do something. And here's what comes in is Jacob's name. Jacob's name means supplanter. And what that means is one who takes the place of. That's his name. Another version would be trickster. Not in the Loki sense. It's not the intention of this. See, some of you knew what I was talking about. You're really good at Marvel. We could be good at Bible. Also, it's weird. I could handle it all. But anyway, they then come up with a plan on how they get it all. So they dress up Jacob in fur. So when we say Esau is really furry, he is. And Jacob goes into the tent where his dad and says, oh, the Lord bless me. Here's the food. I got it quick, and I was able to cook it quick. And apparently Isaac's not only blind, which he is, but also not real bright at this point, not really following that you can't cook things that fast. And he asks, and so Esau, and so this is the setup. And so Jacob is in there. And Isaac starts to kind of question it finally. And he goes, are you really Esau? And Jacob essentially says, yeah, I'm definitely Esau. Really? Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm Esau. Are you sure? Yeah, feel my arm. I'm Esau. And Isaac, the dad, goes, all right. And he gives to Jacob the blessing that it confers. You are now the head of this entire household. And that's just a small thing, because we're going to get to the big thing in just a minute. And I know I've talked too long, but we're going to get through this, okay? So Jacob lied and stole what wasn't his. And as a result, Esau hears this and goes nuts. Shows back up to the camp, finds us out, and says, where is he? I'm going to kill him. Now, they know that he's not joking. This isn't like a brotherly spat. Esau, manly man, is beside himself. He knows what he's just lost because of a lie. And he is going to kill him. And so Rebekah, the mom, takes Jacob and says, get out of here, helps him leave, and he travels, and he leaves. And so Rebekah knew Esau would kill Jacob, so she sent Jacob away. He was gone for many years. There's a bunch of stories in there that are a lot of fun for me. But on the way, Jacob, right as he's going north, he stops. And you know that song, Stairway to Heaven? It's from this. They didn't think it up. It was the Bible kind of thing. And it's at this point that God says, hey, look, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. This thing to me that Jacob says. After all this, the next morning, he says, you know what? If God does all these things, then you'll be my God. That uncertainty is just really interesting to me, but we don't have time because I've rambled on. So anyway, what happens years later is Jacob has a sense that, okay, it's time to go home. So Jacob starts traveling down. He leaves where he's at, and again, a bunch of stories involved in this, but he leaves and he starts coming south. He's up. Can you picture the idea of Israel? So he's right above where even modern day Israel is, and he starts traveling south. And he's coming down there. There's a big lake, the one where Jesus did a bunch of ministry. So if you remember him walking on the water, he's on this lake. And then, so he travels south beyond lake. And then there's the River Jordan, the one that the Israelite people crossed, and the one where John the Baptist was baptizing people. And in between that, and below that is the Dead Sea. Okay? And so Jacob comes down, and right in between those two bodies of water, he's getting ready to cross back into Israel. And he hears from one of his servants, hey, Esau's got 400 men, and he's coming. Now, if you knew you had tricked your brother and that he was murderous, and you find out he's got 400 people coming for you, this is Jacob. And he's like, hey, God, I've made some mistakes in my life. Would you help? And this is the setup. As we get back, so now we are like, so Jacob was left alone. What he did is he kept trying to trick. He kept trying to not just trick, but manipulate the circumstance. And so he sends over gifts. Go to Esau and say, this is from your servant Jacob. And he's got this great plan. And then he sends his wife and his wives and his kids all forward. And now he's left alone. And so this is where we meet him in chapter 32, verse 24. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip. Who is this man? It's God. He touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, let me go, for it's daybreak. Jacob replied, I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. The man asked him, what is your name? Jacob, he answered. The man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and you have overcome. Jacob got a blessing. Earlier in his life, Jacob stole a blessing. This is the conflict that is going on. And I couldn't tell you this part of the story without having you understand the first part. Okay? So he got alone. Jacob got alone. He set everything away that he could find comfort in. Just quick application to these ideas. To be honest, there are many times where we need to be alone and encounter God more than we need to be comforted. I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit is a comfort. He is a comforter. But when we need to hear from God, when we really need God, friends and family are awesome. But sometimes you and I need to fight more than we need to be comforted. Sometimes in the process, injury does happen, and it doesn't necessarily mean that God is against you. That said, God can be vying against you toward something amazing. So he got alone. What happened next? He fought. Something we forget or don't think about when it comes to fighting is that in this case it took time and was exhausting. Statements like, I'm just tired. I get it. I'm not blowing it off. I'm saying this is sometimes the result of fighting. This is some of the state that we're in, that the process to where we're going takes effort. Faithfulness, the response to this trust, requires effort, which means you have to move. And as you step, crazy things happen as you keep working. There's sore muscles, there's calluses, all metaphors for things that can be and sometimes are in life. In this, Jacob got hurt. We as a church, we hit hurt and go, where's God? Where's God? And I'm saying often he's right there. I'm not telling you he's necessarily the author of every pain you have, but he certainly is the upholder of you during the pain. He's certainly strength when you don't have it. Well, I was doing church stuff, but then I got hurt. This church did this. Well, I get that. But when's it time to get up and do something again? When are you going to stop being the 4-year-old that cried when you got off the bike and then like, Well, I didn't know it was going to hurt when you were teaching me to ride. No, you didn't. And there's literally no way I can explain that to you as a 5-year-old, as a 6-year-old, whatever. You're not going to understand it. And I'm sorry that after you fell, you now understand it. I don't really want that for you. If you weren't a failure, you would have been able to ride the first time. That's a joke. Weirdly true at the same time. So when he saw the man could not overpower him, he touched the socket of his hip. These injuries can happen. They are not the statement that God is necessarily not against you. Now let me clarify. If you have chosen, for example, to drive 80 miles an hour in a ice-covered road, and you get in a wreck, that's not God. That's not the devil. That's you're stupid. Wait, I'm in church. I shouldn't be called stupid. Why? Because sometimes we're stupid. And if you get injured from that, hopefully you learn a lesson. But that's not God going, here, let me teach you. I'm going to make you dumb. No, that's you and I acting dumb. And the result is hopefully you get some sense. So what does Jacob do in this? He doesn't quit. Some of us just quit. Look, there's sometimes jobs. My wife was in a ridiculous job where I was almost begging her to quit. She's one of the greatest examples of just, nope. I do what I know I'm supposed to do. And she falls through. She's strong. Sometimes the path, I'd say even often, the path to going where you need to go and want to go. And everybody, all the success people right now, just go on YouTube and search somebody who's telling you how to do something real in your life. They're going to go, it's going to be hard. The Bible's saying the same thing. Well, Christianity is supposed to be easy. No, it's not. Who lied to you? Do you think bringing the message of reconciliation, of being brought back into relationship with God, and you having that message and giving it to people, does that sound like something that'll just be, oh, I did that on Saturday? No. This takes work. I bet it's easy for Pastor Natalie and Eric here. These church people make all the money. You're outside your mind? So the man asked, what is your name? Now, if the man's God, if the man's an angel, whatever you want to call it, why doesn't he know his name? Like, dude's just wandering through the wilderness of Israel and goes, campfire. I feel like wrestling. I don't know who he is. No, this is an encounter. And so he asked, what is your name? Why? Because years earlier, Jacob's dad had said, you're Esau? Are you sure? What is your name? And at that point, Jacob lied. I'm Esau. I'm Esau. I'm Esau. And now we have, and I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. And the response is, what's your name? The wrestling God says to Jacob, all right, who is it that's asking? An older version of it called the Amplified translates it this way. The man asked him, what is your name? Listen. And in shock of realization, whispering, Jacob said, I'm Jacob, supplanter, schemer, trickster. God asked Jacob, what is your name? And Jacob in that moment had to decide what he wanted more, a life that was controlled by deceit and trickery or a life of truth with God. Jacob had spent his life putting on masks and acts to try and manipulate circumstances and people, and now God was calling him on it. You want a blessing from God? Who's showing up? Your made-up Christian version? The one where you don't cuss as long as you're in the church, but as soon as you get out, you're like, I'm glad that was up and over. I'm not ripping on you cussing. I don't care. I'm telling you, there's some reason you're putting on the mask that makes it so that you make believe that there's two versions of you. You find that healthy? Where you can abuse people in your workplace just as long as it doesn't show up in any Christian situation? When you don't realize that your workplace is your Christian situation? Way more than this one right here. Like, way more. I don't need you to be strong for me, but there's people at your work that really do, because they don't know. And there's a relationship with God that He's calling them back to, and they're His people and they don't know it yet, but you and I do. And so you can either show up with a bullhorn and act like a moron and scream at them and tell them how they need to get right, or you can start living it to the degree that they go, wait, there's something different about you. I'm telling you, consistency shows up that way. So God asked, what is your name? And Jacob, for the first time in his life, realized that in order to truly get to God, he must put aside his masks, his lies, his tricks, and face up to who he truly was. Let's close with this. We want the blessings of God, but we don't want to change at all. We won't even change our self-concept before Him. When He sees you bare, open, we still go, no, that's not me. What is your name? When it comes to the real battles of life, listen, guys, you got to know. God already knows. We want all what belongs to us, but often we're not even ready to be honest about who we are. So we can lie to others, we can even lie to ourselves. It's a remarkable thing, but God, He knows. I think we're a group and a church and a denominations of Jacobs. We have learned that in order to survive in our families, at school, and even at church, we must give people what we think they want. We deceive and manipulate, maybe not even maliciously, but we do, simply to survive. This is how we get by. I'm not trying to shame it. I'm trying to say this is how we get by. And God understands, but if we're going to come to Him, and we truly actually need to be blessed, we have to come in truth. Because those who worship Him, worship in spirit and truth. What is your name? Who does God know you to be? Let's be honest. You may not know today. So first step is to come to Him and even start there. God, I want to know You. I'm going to need You to help me because I don't know who I am, but I need You. And You are the one who created me, and You are the one who can reveal. You are the one who went, let there be. God, please say, let there be into my life. I need light.